All right, welcome to an episode I would be calling The Rise of the Nephilim. So, my name is Shane, and if you're new to this channel, this is Black Swan Revelation. So, welcome. We're going to be diving deep into the origins of the Nephilim, talk about it. We're going to talk a little bit about Matthew 24 when Jesus talked about the end of the days being very similar to the days of Noah and what that means today and all this kind of stuff. So if you like this kind of thing, if you like talking about giants, Nephilim, Anakims, Zimzims, Zimimims, M&Ms, all that kind of stuff, then you've come to the right channel. So as a resource, I'm going to be using this book right here, which I just picked up today, and this one is called On the Trail of the Nephilim, Giant Skeletons and Ancient Megalithic Structures. This is a fascinating book, I'm telling you, right out of the gate. It's got over 120 full color photos by L.A. Marzulli. I've watched some of his videos on YouTube. They're quite fascinating. If you ever want to check out his YouTube channel, I think it's called the same name as his book. And then also, you could also look up L.A. Marzulli. All right, so let's begin here. I want to go back in time. You'd think I'd be going back to the book of Genesis, but we're going to dive into the book of Deuteronomy first, and then we're going to go back to Genesis 6, because this is quite fascinating. We see in Deuteronomy chapter 21, this is just before Israel was about to go into the promised land. Moses decided to send out 12 spies and go check out basically the area, which included the Amorites, which were one of the nations that God told Moses to get rid of, to punt. And an interesting note is the Amorites are basically descendants of Horeb, which is another name for Anak, basically. So these are where the descendants of Anak live. They all live around Mount Horeb. And these are where we get Anakims. So when we go back to Genesis 6, we're going to be talking about Nephilim. So the Anakims are basically descendants from the Nephilim. So in Genesis chapter 6, it talks about that there were giants in those days and also later on. And including the day that we live in today, we're going to be talking about that there is a possibility that these giants can appear also in our time frame, in our generation, whether that's the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now, we're not sure. But we'll talk about this throughout this little mini series. And again, if you're interested in this kind of thing, make sure and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure and leave a comment if you want me to use another resource or check out another resource. I'll probably dive a little bit into the book of Enoch as well from time to time. So again, if you like this stuff, here we go. So verse 19. This is Moses just kind of recounting what had happened over the past 40 years. So he's just basically wrote the book of Deuteronomy, and he's just recapping, letting the Israelites know what's going to happen when they enter into the promised land, including getting carried away as well, which is quite fascinating. So let's just read a little bit. The mountain of the Amorites. And when we departed from Horeb, we went through all that great territory, all that great and terrible wilderness, which ye saw by the way of the mountain of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us, and we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said unto you, ye are come unto the mountain of the Amorites, which the Lord our God doth give unto us. Behold, the Lord thy God hath set the land before thee. Go up and possess it, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath said unto thee. Fear not, neither be discouraged. So they are to take over that land with extreme prejudice. So let's go over to verse 22. And ye came near unto me, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us, and they shall search us out the land and bring us word again by what way we must go up and into what cities we shall come. And the saying pleased me well. And I took 12 men of you, one of a tribe, and they turned and went up into the mountain and came onto the valley of Eshcol and searched it out. And they took of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down unto us and brought us word again and said, it is a good land which the Lord our God doth give us. Now, one interesting note is you may have wondered, who are these spies? These spies are the leaders of thousands, meaning they are very influential. These aren't the guys that are just leading a group of 10 people and that's all they oversee. These are leaders that have absolute influence. So this is why we see when the 12 spies come back that 10 of them give an evil report and only 2 people give a good report. And obviously we know that's Joshua and Caleb. So let's just read a little bit more. This is what sets up everything for Israel to actually be in the wilderness for 40 years. And those people that agreed with the spies, they were not to enter into the promised land, including Miriam, Moses' sister, including Aaron, and including Moses himself. They were not able to enter into the promised land. And it basically all starts here. So Israel refuses to enter the land. Notwithstanding, ye would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God, and ye murmured in your tents and said, because the Lord hated us. So can you imagine all the Israelites going to bed that night and going, this is ridiculous. God hates us. He brought us out of Egypt just to kill us, not to give us any grapes or honey or wine or any of that stuff. No, he came to kill us, brought us all the way out into the desert for 40 years just to torture us. That's what they're saying. This is actually just before the 40 years. Notwithstanding, ye would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord, and ye murmured in your tents and said, because the Lord hated us, he hath brought us forth out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. So they're basically again saying that God, the only reason why he brought us up is to feed us to the giants. Feed us, feed our flesh to the giants. Whither shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our heart, saying, the people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven. Moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims there, giants. And then I said unto you, dread not, neither be afraid of them. The Lord your God with goeth before you. He shall fight for you, according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes. So Moses is pleading with them, saying, look, guys, remember what God did for you guys in Egypt. Remember the 10 plagues? He wiped out a whole Egyptian army, took out all the firstborn. And then remember the miracle crossing the Red Sea and all the chariots, all the horses, all the riders, all the Egyptians wiped out. So remember that this will happen the same way. We're going to be able to take this land. And this is Moses pleading with them. Verse 31, and in the wilderness, where thou hast seen how that the Lord thy God bare thee as a man doth bear a son, in all the way that ye went, till ye came into this place. Yet in this thing ye did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you to search you out a place, to pitch your tents in fire by night, to shew you by what way you should go, and in a cloud by day. And this was the punishment. And the Lord heard the voice of your words and was wroth and sware it, saying, surely there shall not one of these good men of this evil generation see that good land, including Moses, which I swear to give unto your fathers, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him will I give the land that he hath trodden upon, and to his children, because he hath wholly followed the Lord. So eventually he's going to get Hebron, the land of where all the Anakims hung out. He's going to conquer this area. He's going to be a giant killer. Also, the Lord was angry with me for your sake, saying, thou also shalt not go thither. But Joshua the son of Nun, which standeth before thee, he shall go in thither, encourage him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones, which ye said should be a prey unto your children, meaning they were murmuring, saying that our children are going to be eaten by these giants. They're flesh eaters. They're going to eat them. They're cannibals. And we're terrified, and our children are going to be prey. This is why God brought us out of Egypt, to feed us to the giants. Crazy. Moreover, your little ones, which he said should be a prey, and your children, which in that day had no knowledge between good and evil. Talk about back to Genesis, where Adam and Eve took of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. They had no idea how to do good or bad back then. Once they took of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, now they were able to comprehend not only how to do good things, but how to do wicked things as well, how to build cities, all kinds of stuff. Verse 40, but as for you, turn you, take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And instead, Israel said, you know what? Come to think about it, we made a mistake. We're going to fight. And Moses like, okay, you just said you're not going to fight. Don't do an even worse thing by turning around and going to fight these people, because God won't be with you. But they didn't listen. They took off. They went and fought and got their butts handed to them on a platter. Why? Because one of the reasons was the ark never left the camp. They never left. They stayed in camp. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, so let's go now to Genesis 6, and then we're gonna touch a little bit on this book. So Genesis 6, where did we get the Nephilim from? It's quite fascinating when you think about it, that the first 5 books of Moses are just littered with giants, battling giants. These are what Israel was trying to conquer. They were trying to get rid of the giant kings, if you will, that were controlling that area in Canaan. These are the Canaanites. They were controlling all the people in that area. And when Joshua took over, they went after all of these kings. And anyone that made peace with them, they left them. But the ones that did make peace and came out to battle Israel, they took them out. Men, women, children. Why? Because these were all part of the race of the giants. These weren't your average human beings. These were corrupt people that had their DNAs corrupted. Genesis 6. Let's go here real quick here. Hopefully you're getting something out of this here. So let's read Genesis 6. This is the whole reason why the whole world got flooded. It wasn't just because man was wicked. It was man was wicked in a whole on a whole nother level. It wasn't just people angry with each other. No, these guys were thinking about how to do violent things with each other. As soon as they wake up in the morning, they're thinking, how can I murder someone? It's crazy. So let's go to chapter 6. Man's wickedness. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So basically, they kidnapped the women that belonged to mankind. These are fallen angels. They made a pact to grab these women and make them wives, and then they taught them all kinds of stuff, all kinds of enchantments, taught them how to do makeup, taught them how to make their hair really sexy, all kinds of crazy stuff, and how to seduce men, how to study the stars, all that kind of stuff. They taught them everything, which is quite interesting. And then the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And I think it's because the DNA of mankind was corrupted so bad that God said, I got to limit these guys to 120. I can't let them live longer than that, because before that, they were living longer. So verse 4, there's where we get the giants. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Just like Nimrod, one of the mighty men, probably a giant. So fallen angels came to earth. This is not the lineage from Cain, going after the line of Seth, and then all of a sudden they're bearing giants. No, this is something supernatural. These are angels that went against God's command because of free will, and they decided to take women against their will. And when they did that, they bore children that became giants. Their DNA was corrupted, and that mechanism for allowing us to grow was basically, it was like an open valve. It never stopped. People kept growing. People were growing past 10, 15, 20 feet. It was crazy time. And if you read the book of Enoch, you see what was happening with these giants. They were starving. The giants were starving, and these giants couldn't have sex with anyone because the women were too small. They had grown so huge, and they were starving. So what they did was they would have men go out and hunt for them and bring them food. And when that ran out, they would eat the people. And when that ran out, they would eat each other. And one of the punishments was that the fallen angels, before they would get punished, they were to witness them slaughtering each other. They were to witness the giants slaughtering each other right in front, right before their very eyes. And then after that, they got chained up, and they're chained up to this day. But I believe one day that these angels, these fallen angels, are going to be released, and they're not going to be happy because they're chained up for a long time, and they're going to be released onto the earth. And anybody that doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in Jesus Christ, they're in a world of hurt. It's not going to be a great time. I'm telling you, this is why we're telling people to believe in Jesus Christ, because you don't want to be here when these angels get kicked out of heaven, get cast down to earth, and the angels that were tied up, were chained up for a few thousand years, are being released. And it's all in the book of Revelation. When they get released, they're going after mankind. And it's going to be like the days of Noah, which is what Jesus said in Matthew 24. It'll be like those days. we'll talk about that in another video, but I just wanted to finish this real quick. So the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There are giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. This is going to come up again, but this time instead, what's going to happen is Jesus is going to return. So now we have here this book, On the Trail of the Nephilim. So I'm going to dive into this book in the next video. This is just a little bit of an introduction. We're going to talk about it because, again, there's lots of good stuff in this book. We're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about some of the archaeological studies, some of the findings, some of the letters, basically what was happening during the conquest, basically what I was just reading from Deuteronomy. We're going to go a little bit deeper, and you're going to find out how the Nephilim, the Anakims, if you will, and a whole race of giants actually migrated west. So they fled Canaan because the Israelites were taking over Canaan, and they fled, and they began to move to the west into Europe and into the Isles of the Gentiles, which is where we live in North America. So we'll talk about that. There's all kinds of archaeological evidence of giants in North America, in Canada, in the US, in Mexico, in South America. This is going to be an interesting series. So if you got something out of this, let me know. Feel free to comment. I always like reading your comments. And then also don't forget to subscribe, especially if you've made it this far. Subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.